Hey guys, what is going on? Lucky here, and let me ask you one question. Are you fully satisfied with the current state of World of Tanks? And if you answered no to this question, just like the 96% of the 7,500 people in my community who put out their vote right here, what changes would you make in order to make World of Tanks more enjoyable for you and the rest of the World of Tanks community? Well, I've been collecting some of your suggestions and I've combined them with some of my own ideas, and I made this video out of it, entitled How Wargaming Can Improve World of Tanks, because I agree with the 96% of you who think World of Tanks would be better off with some changes. And just to clarify, this definitely is not going to be another ranting video about how bad Wargaming is and what they all do wrong. No, this video is mainly going to focus on things Wargaming could do in order to make their game better and more enjoyable to play. So I'm actually going to try and provide some solutions for World of Tanks' problems instead of just only pointing out what's wrong. This also includes some cool ideas and features that Wargaming could implement in the future to give the game just that little extra. But this doesn't take away the fact that there still will be some critique, because I have to be honest, this game still needs a lot of balancing changes in my opinion. So Wargaming, if you're watching this, please take notes, because I'll be sharing my and my community's full opinion about your game for absolutely free. So I'm just hoping that for this one time you'll actually listen to your own community for once and hear what we really want, and not only what makes you the most money, just like your buddies at World of Warships have been doing since the beginning of their game. And come on, if they can do it, I'm sure you guys can as well. So now, without further ado, let me explain the structure of this video. So I'm going to split the video up in three main categories, which will be primary changes, aka the things that we think should be the main focus and the first things that need to change. Then next up, I will be talking about secondary changes, aka the things that are still important but shouldn't be Wargaming's #1 priority. And at last, I'll be talking about possible cool features which aren't particularly necessary but still would contribute to the overall enjoyment of World of Tanks. So before I'm actually going to start, here is a full list of all the topics covered in this video, and if you're only interested in a few of them, then feel free to take a look at the description of this video, because I've added all the timestamps to all the different topics right there. So you can just click on the ones that you find interesting, so you don't have to watch all the parts that don't seem interesting to you. So now, with all that out of the way, let's dive straight into the video. So to kick things off, let's start with the first category of this video, which are the primary concerns. And all the way at the top of this list, you've probably guessed it, are the gold rounds. So gold rounds really need to change, because in their current state they completely take away all the skill in the game. Because why would you use clever play, or would you try to outplay your opponents, if you can just double tap your 2 key and activate your wallet to shred even through the most thickly and well armored tanks in the game? I don't think that's fair at all, and it only discourages players to play iconic tanks like, for example, the Mouse. Because what is the point of playing tanks that heavily rely on their armor, like the Mouse or the E100, if their armor just isn't worth anything? So that's why I've come up with some possible solutions to this problem. With solution number 1 being nerfing the gold rounds alpha damage. World of Tanks Blitz has already done it by reducing the gold rounds alpha damage by 50%. So for example, a heat spamming T-54 would only do 160 damage with gold rounds, instead of the 320 that it would do if it were to fire regular rounds, thus halving its DPM. In that way, people who just gold spam all the time would be stimulated to switch back to AP a lot more often to make full use of their DPM. In that way, it's less painful for those Mouse and E100 players, and those gold spammers would maybe start to think twice before spamming gold at even a Gorilla 15 or a Batchat, which is completely unnecessary. There are only 2 downsides with the solution, which one being the realism, because it doesn't make sense that 2 shells from the same caliber would massively differ in damage output. But then again, it's not that World of Tanks is the most realistic game after all, so that negative personally isn't such a big deal for me. And secondly, reducing the effectiveness of gold rounds could result into super heavies like a Type 5 heavy becoming even more powerful. But hang on, because I'll be talking about armor in the next topic in the primary class, so stay tuned for that. But now let's move on to solution number 2, and my personal favorite solution for rebalancing gold ammo, and that is creating a hard cap on the amount of gold rounds that you can take into a battle. That basically means that only a certain percentage of your total ammo capacity can be gold rounds. Take for example a percentage of 20, which means that if you were playing a T-54 for example, that has ammo capacity of 50, that means that you can only take a maximum of 10 gold rounds with you to a battle. Which means that in this case you're only carrying about 3,200 hit points worth of gold ammo damage. Which means that you have to think and choose wisely at what target you want to fire your gold rounds at. And this concept pretty much eliminates the #1 frustration of most World of Tanks players, which are people who just load full out gold and even fire it at tanks such as a Batchat or a Leopard 1, where it's just completely unnecessary. So maybe after this change those people will think twice and start to think more strategically while playing World of Tanks, which makes the game eventually more fun for them and for the rest of the players. And this solution has only one downside, and that is, again, that you can still say that the super heavies like the Type 5 might become even more powerful because of the reduced amount of premium ammo in random battles. But again, stay tuned because I'll be covering the super heavies on the next topic. So now we are done with the gold rounds, let's move on to the secondary primary topic, which is the big armor rebalance. So most people get really annoyed when they simply can't penetrate tanks such as the Type 5 Heavy, the Object 705A and the Object 268 version 4 frontally without firing any premium ammo. And I know that most of these tanks need that armor because they pretty much trade in everything else for it, but in my opinion I think that those earlier mentioned tanks should all have at least one frontal weak spot that's reliably pennable by the majority of equal tilt guns standard ammo type, and that is also visible from most angles and requires some effort to hide. So that way you give everyone a chance to penetrate those tanks frontally with standard ammo. So anyways, where this all comes down to is that Wargaming should in no way force you to fire gold in a game to do damage against a certain tank. And as I said, this is fairly easily fixable by just giving those earlier mentioned tanks at least one real frontal weak spot. So now with the armor done, let's move on to primary topic number 3, where I'm going to be talking about, a very sensitive subject that's called artillery. And to be honest, I personally think that artillery just doesn't belong in this game, since they're technically no real tanks but just a gun on tracks, a very annoying gun on tracks. But of course I'm trying to provide you guys with solutions which will both keep the artillery players and the rest of the World of Tanks players happy. So before I'm going to bring up the possible solutions, let me first talk about Wargaming's previous tries to fix artillery. Because a while ago Wargaming tried to, quotation mark, fix artillery by reducing their overall damage and removing their AP rounds and adding a shitty stun mechanic. But in my opinion they only made it worse, because before the big arty rebalance, arty simply would only do damage to you without leaving you with a 25% crew performance decrease, aka the stun. And don't get me wrong, the previous state of artillery was still bad, but it was way better than the current state with the shitty stun mechanic. No, what Wargaming should have done differently is at first just scrapping that shitty stun idea altogether, then lower the alpha damage caused by HE by around 50%, and increase the reload, dispersion values, aim time and splash radius of the HE round, because obviously it's an artillery and artilleries are known for having a good and wide splash radius. And personally I would have kept the AP rounds in just to keep that RNG jackpot chance in the game for some fun moments, which of course would be a lot harder to hit because of the accuracy nerf, but that's of course optional. And also, before all those arty stun lovers are going to say that the stun is perfect and meant for keeping the super heavies from overruling the battlefield, yeah, that's true, but you just gotta be honest with yourself. Have you ever seen an artillery player focusing down the biggest threats in the game? I certainly haven't. The only things I see artillery players do is trying to shoot at fast, lightly armored tanks which are on the move in the hope to pan and one-shot them. So yeah, summarized, preferably I would like to see artillery getting removed from the game completely, but if Wargaming removes the stun mechanic and just keeps the current HE damage intact and slightly increases the reload, aim time, dispersion and splash radius, I think that artillery would become a lot more bearable for most World of Tanks players. So then, with the artillery done, let's move on to primary topic number 4, which is restoring the power creeps. So for this one, the problem and solution are rather obvious and straightforward. For example, take the rather new Object 430U and compare it with the old Chinese 121. There is literally nothing that the 121 has got better than the Object 430U, yet they are the exact same type of tanks. Same story with the AMX 30B and the STB-1 and some other tanks. This results into seeing the power creep tanks like the 121 and the STB-1 so little in random battles nowadays, because there is simply no reason to pick the 121 or the STB-1 over the Object 430U or the AMX 30B. But luckily this problem can be solved rather easily by just buffing the AMX 30B and STB-1 and nerfing the 430U and the AMX 30B just a little bit so they all become worth playing. For example, make the 430U the more slower armor relying 440 Alpha Medium, and make the 121 the more faster maneuverable 440 Alpha Medium. That way you create specialities for both vehicles, even though they have pretty much the same playstyle. Doing this basically makes both vehicles worth playing again and increases the versatility on the battlefield by a lot. So now with that covered, let's move on to primary topic number 5, which is, I think, a very sensitive one in between the World of Tanks community. It's of course all about overpowered, overbiased and power creep premium tanks, which blends in quite well with the previous one. So if you've been playing World of Tanks for quite a while now, you've probably noticed the continuously increasing strength of the new tier 8 premium tanks. And just to explain for the newer World of Tanks players among us, premium tanks used to be a whole lot weaker back in the days. Moreover, Wargaming's rule was, and these were their own words, that tier 8 premium tanks aren't and will never be better than their standard tier 8 counterpart. And for quite some time they've kept their promise quite well, because if you take a look at the old school premiums like the IS-7 and the FCM50T, both of these vehicles were in no way better than, for example, the IS-3 or the AMX 5100, which was completely fine because instead of being as strong as their standard tier 8 counterpart, they made a lot more credits, which is in my eyes a very nice compromise, because you've had to sacrifice your tank stats for the ability to make a lot of credit. But that was up until August 2016, when Wargaming introduced the Scorpion G, which completely trashed their own rule and promise, because it was and still is miles better than the standard paper-skinned German tier 8 tank destroyer, the Rheinmetall Borsig. And from that point on, the new following tier 8 premiums only became better and better. And probably because the Scorpion G sold as much times in 1 week as some of the less popular old premiums sold since their release date, Wargaming started to see dollar signs, and from that point on we got the Patriot, the Defender, which really started to frustrate the regular tier 8 players. Up until Wargaming released the Chrysler KGF, which completely flipped the World of Tanks community up its head, and since then Wargaming seemed to have kinda cooled down with the power creep premiums a little bit. But looking at their concept for the new tier 8 Polish premium heavy tank, the Project 51, I'm afraid that Wargaming is going to pick up their power creep path again. But still, we gotta keep in mind that the Project 51 stats are still not 100% confirmed, so I just hope that they won't create another Defender, even though I'm afraid it's quite looking like a Defender mixed together with a Patriot. So I hope Wargaming has learned from the whole Chrysler drama. Anyways, in my opinion, and I know it's hard for Wargaming to do because this is about premium tanks, I think that Wargaming should remove or mass nerf every premium tank that came in between the Scorpion G and the Chrysler K, in order to make the tier 8 battles a lot more fair and fun to play. But again, because this is about real money and because Wargaming has never ever nerfed any premium tank before, obviously because they don't want unsatisfied customers, I'm afraid that we just gotta deal with tier 8 matchmaking full of overpowered premiums the way it is right now. But the one thing that we can hope for is that Wargaming won't make it worse and just simply stops releasing more of those overpowered premium tanks in the future. So now with the OP premiums covered, let's move on to the 6th and final primary topic of this video, which is all about skill-based matchmaking, which basically means a matchmaker that makes sure that the skill level of both teams are about the same. For example, if you would take WN8 as a skill factor, even though it's not a good skill factor since it only takes damage into account, this skill-based matchmaking system would sum up the total WN8 of one team and place it against a team with about the same sum of WN8. That way you prevent those 15-0 steamroll gameplays and you create a much more balanced and fun gameplay experience for both teams. And this would also prevent those people who really rely on XPM too much from committing suicide right away when they see, for example, that they have to face a full unicorn team while he is mixed in with a so-called tomato team. And as a negative, you might say that switching over to skill-based matchmaking completely eliminates those massive 12 kills, 30 13k damage gameplays. But guys, just be honest, even the biggest unicorns have their bad games once in a while. Personally, I don't think it would impact those exceptional games too much, and I think that skill-based matchmaking is a great way to overall make the gameplay experience a lot better for every player. So now I'm pretty much done with the primary section, which means that we're moving on to the little less mandatory changes slash topics in the secondary section. And we'll be kicking off the secondary category with the maps. So as you guys might know, World of Tanks recently got the HD maps, which look absolutely gorgeous, by the way. I think it's the best update World of Tanks has ever received. So overall, my opinions about 1.0 are very positive. But one thing that really grinds my gears is that Wargaming again decided to remove maps from their game, and fair enough, they will be adding new ones in the future. But why would they remove the old ones? There are actually a lot of players, including me, who really enjoyed playing on those old school maps, like for example Dragon Ridge or Hidden Village. And I know turning maps into HD takes a lot of time and effort, but Wargaming, please start to slowly rework all the old maps into HD and start adding them back in the game again. I'm sure most of the community would very much appreciate that, because the more maps you can play on, the more variety and excitement you create for your game. Then the second map related topic, which would really help with managing all those maps, is getting rid of the random map rotation system and introducing a map selection system, which allows players to simply check or uncheck maps that they want to play on in the random battle game mode. This would make some RNG based campaign missions so much easier. For example, you need to do a spotting mission for light tanks, then you simply check Malinovka and check Prokhorovka and uncheck all the rest. Or you need to do a damage block mission, so then you simply check Himmelsdorf and Runeberg and uncheck the rest. This would also reduce overall player frustration a lot, because salty mouse players don't get Malinovka all the time, and salty light tank players don't get Himmelsdorf all the time. However, there are two main issues with the map selection system, which is at first the fact that less popular maps would die out because no one will check them on their list. Well, one solution for this is doing nothing about it, because this will show Wargaming exactly what maps players like the least, and then it's up to Wargaming to redesign them to make them more attractive again. Or Wargaming would create map packs, so that you can't select or deselect separate maps, but that you can only select certain map combo packs. And then it's up to Wargaming to mix the popular and non-popular map in the same combo packs to prevent them from dying out. So that is one main issue with this covered. The next main issue is the elimination of tank type variation on certain maps. For example, this could result into Himmelsdorf just being riddled with heavies only, or Malinovka just being riddled with tank destroyers only. But this could be fixed with, for example, a tank type cooldown. For example, if you enter Himmelsdorf in a heavy once, you have to play Himmelsdorf in another tank type twice before you can play it in a heavy again. But guys, I have to be honest, overall I think the map selection system is the least stable change I have on this video, but I still wanted to mention it because some of you people on the community came up with it. So I'll just leave it up to you if you like this new map selection system, or if you prefer the random map rotation. So now, with the maps covered, let's move on to secondary topic number 2, which is also the final secondary topic, which is all about the bond system. So to start off with, in case you know nothing about bonds or what they are, bonds are an in-game currency that you can currently only obtain by playing ranked battles or getting certain medals in random battles. And currently with those bonds you can only buy improved equipment, which is overall way better than the normal equipment that you can buy for credits. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of the bond system, since it rewards the better than average players and it stimulates the normal players to get better at the game. But what I don't like about the bond system is the rewards that you can get from them. Because as I already said before, currently the only thing you can buy with bonds is improved equipment and directives, which are pretty much a light version of improved equipment. So this basically means that only the better players among us can actually buy these things, which means that the best players in the game become even better, thus making it harder for us, the average players, to kill them, like if it wasn't hard enough already. So my question to Wargaming is, why would you make the best players even better? This only results into normal players getting even more frustrated about the fact that they just got killed by a Unicum again, with even greater advantages above their already high skill level. So that's why, in my opinion, Wargaming should get rid of the improved equipment and introduce special camouflages or decals that you can put on your tanks to make it more personal, like you can do with the bushes in War Thunder, for example. This way, the better players can buy those cosmetic items to customize and fancy up their favorite tanks to show off to the other players that they're actually good at the game, because that is what most of those unicorns want. So by doing that, Wargaming would make the normal players happy because they don't have to fight above average players with even greater advantages than they already had, and at the same time they would make the unicorn players happy as well, because they finally have something to show off with that they're actually good at the game. So in my opinion, changing the bond rewards to cosmetic ones is just a win-win situation for everyone, and I don't really see a reason why Wargaming wouldn't do it, since there is no real money involved into bonds anyways. So with the bonds covered, which was the last topic of the secondary section, let's now move on to the final section of this video, which are the cool extras. This category basically only includes things or topics that are not necessary at all, but would still be a nice addition to the game, and would just fancy up the overall gameplay experience in World of Tanks. So kicking off on this list are functioning medium/small caliber secondary guns. So we have seen this feature before in the 2017 Halloween special and the Leviathan.
Oh my god, you dyslexic piece of shit. It's called the Leviathan game mode,
where both special tanks called Franken and Stein both had two functioning guns, which means that Wargaming does already have the technology to implement functioning secondary guns, and I don't really see why they won't add it onto normal tanks as well, because just imagine how underwhelming tanks such as the Grant and the M3 Lee could become so much better if their turrets on top actually could rotate and shoot. These medium/small caliber secondary guns would be ideal for heavy tank to shoot from multiple angles when they are, for example, getting flanked by a light tank. And obviously, because of the caliber of most secondary guns, they will only be effective against lightly armored vehicles. So overall, a functioning secondary gun system would be a very cool addition to the game, and it really would affect the overall World of Tanks gameplay a lot. But I do think Wargaming should do some serious testing before throwing it out on the live server, because fair enough, it's a cool concept, but I think that some tanks, like for example the Japanese heavies, which pretty much have a mini turret for every crew member, would become a little bit too powerful. But I guess I'll just leave it up to Wargaming, and I hope that they will think it through carefully before doing anything drastic with it. So then moving on to the second item, which is implementing popular mods into the game itself. So Wargaming have done this before by, for example, including a double row tank carousel into the game itself, but I think that Wargaming could implement a lot more mods into the game itself in order to make the game better or more user friendly. For example, by implementing the automatic crew transferring between regular and premium vehicles that XVM currently offers, or by implementing the Falconet detail mod, for example, for just that cool extra touch of detail, or the forever requested free cam option in the replay mode, which would personally make my and pretty much the life of every other World of Tanks YouTuber a lot easier. And so on. There are a lot more mods that would definitely qualify to be implemented into the game itself. So Wargaming, if I were you, I would go ahead and search around into your own mod hub and just see for yourself. I'm sure that you'll find a lot of cool pre-programmed features there that would make the game overall a lot better. So with that covered, let's move on to item number 3, which is Realism.
But Lucky, World of Tanks isn't realistic at all. Why would Wargaming even try? Because they will never get on the same level as War Thunder.
I know World of Tanks isn't realistic at all, and I'm glad it isn't, because I'm a big fan of the more arcade-ish style that World of Tanks has to offer. For example, that it uses the hit point system instead of the crew knockout system that War Thunder has. But I think comparing World of Tanks with War Thunder is something like comparing apples with pears. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that Wargaming could do some easy fixes in order to make their game just a tiny little bit more realistic. And by that, I mean stuff that I've tested on my Mythbusters series before, which completely turned out to be the complete opposite way of how it would be in real life. For example, that you still need to have enough penetration to shoot through a hole in the enemy's armor that's already made by another vehicle, or the fact that you can spot tanks that are hiding behind other tanks, or that you cannot shoot down planes flying across the map. By the way, this would also go together with the secondary gun system quite perfectly. Or that there are no battles at night, where you could maybe introduce a nice little thingy that, for example, headlights actually do have a function. That way you make the Patton actually a very cool tank. But anyways, just small stuff like that would make the game a lot more like the real deal, style and would be cool to see in the future. Then moving on to item number 4, which are extra game modes. So Wargaming has already done a lot of extra game modes in the past, for example the Chaffee Race game mode, which was very fun by the way, or the recent April Fool's joke, the Battle Royale game modes, or the now running Frontline game modes, which I really enjoy by the way. But why make them, just like the old maps, only available for a limited time? Why won't you just keep them into the game forever? Because believe it or not, when I get frustrated too much in random battles, I do need to cool down and play something more fun-based for a while to get my sanity back. And those earlier mentioned fun modes are perfect for just that. So Wargaming, this fix is very easy. Please give us our fun modes back. That will be very much appreciated, and it will reduce the overall stress level in the World of Tanks chat by a lot. So then moving on to item number 5, which is the improvement of training rooms and test areas. Because one thing that frustrates me a lot is that you can't start a training room on your own. This makes it so hard for me to get, for example, the thumbnail shot on a particular map, because I always need to ask someone to join me for a few seconds just to start the battle, and I just find that very annoying. And a second improvement for training rooms could be the ability to set up a team of bots to fight against. This will be perfect for new players to learn the basics of the game, or for a more experienced player to try out the effectiveness of different positions on different maps without bothering your friends too much. Again, not a big must, but a very easy one to implement. But what also would be very cool is to add the testing area, just like Crossout has, for example. Because I think Crossout completely nailed the testing bit. Because just imagine yourself this. You've just unlocked, for example, the T-54, and you're wondering, what gun should I mount? And to know the answer to that, you obviously have to play some battles with both guns to see which one you like the most. But wouldn't it be a lot easier to just equip a preview version of the gun and click a button to literally drive out your tank garage with the selected gun and just shoot some provided dummy tanks or target to find out which one you like the most? That would just work so much faster than having to research both and playing entire battles with both guns. That way it also won't screw up your stats or win rate. So again, it's just a small idea, but it just would be so cool to have it, and it would save a lot of time, because how sad is it that you grind 64k experience to unlock a gun and then finding out that you don't like it or prefer the other one more afterwards. So that pretty much wraps up the entire list of cool extra features, and at the same time the entire video as well. So guys, now my question to you is, what do you think about these ideas or changes? And do you think Wargaming will take notes if they see this? Please let me know in the comment section down below. Personally, if I take into account the past and all our previous streams, I think Wargaming just won't give a damn and just do whatever earns them the most money. Oh, hey guys, it's Lucky from the future here. And before you listen to the rest of the stuff that Lucky from the past has to say, I do have to be fair and say that Wargaming is improving somewhat, since it's just been yesterday since they've released a reskinned version of the KV2, aka the Ragnarok. And yes, I know it's just an overpriced reskin, but the point that I'm trying to make is that that KV2 has the exact same stats as the regular researchable KV2. So it looks like Wargaming is improving bit by bit. And since the audio for this video was recorded about a week ago, please take the rest of it with a grain of salt, because I think we just have to give Wargaming some time with it. So there is no reason to keep on bashing them yet. Anyways, enjoy the final bit of the video. I'm just going to hop back in my time machine now, and yeah, goodbye. Because personally, I think Wargaming doesn't give a damn about us, their community, their own damn players. But still, I just wanted to make this video only because I have hope that one day someone at the Wargaming office will listen and bring up our ideas to their drawing tables. Just like their pals at World of Warships have been doing since the beginning of their game. But hey, I guess we'll just have to wait and see if anything will change for the better, or if Wargaming will continue on mining gold out of their collapsing mine. So guys, I would say let Wargaming know about the existence of this video by smashing the like button, and who knows, they will see it and act on it. And also, if you're new to the channel, make sure to smack that subscribe button, because I've got a lot more World of Tanks content waiting for you and coming up right your way. But for now, I'm just going to say have an awesome day, and I'll catch you guys later.
Jack it up.